Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lena and I make college and book related content here on YouTube, and today I'll be sharing with you all my May wrap up. Before we get into the video, I just want to thank everyone for over 200 subscribers. The lighting's also going to change a bunch, but I started my YouTube channel in May of 2020, so it's been a little bit over 2 years, and I have over 200 subscribers, which is insane to think about, so thank you to each and every one of you. If you haven't subscribed already, feel free to join down below. And I just really want to take the time to say thank you so much for watching my videos and continuing to watch my videos. It means so much to me, and I'm really happy with everything that we've accomplished on this channel thanks to you all. This video is like a little whack, but I'm trying to get my May wrap up in because I read 5 great books for the month of May, and I want to share what I read with you all, and also I need to find a better filming spot because this is kind of bare. But also there's not that many options in my house, so TBD on that one, but for right now we'll get into the video. So the first book that I read in the month of May was Václav and Lena by Haley Taylor. This book is about 2 children, Václav and Lena, who are Russian immigrants living in the United States, in New York City to be specific. They're really, really close friends, they've grown up inseparable, and then one day something happens that tears them apart and Lena disappears, and Václav really doesn't know what happened to Lena, where she went. He just knows it's something bad, and he is unable to determine what that is, but he does miss her a lot, and one day they eventually reconnect, and the book just goes from there. So all in all, I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. I thought there were some really sweet moments between Václav and Lena, especially when they were young children, around like 7 or 8 years old. They were just really sweet moments of friendship, of love, genuine childhood love for each other, and also just this really pureness in their relationship. I really appreciated the way that they totally accepted each other no matter how different they were from each other, and it was just really beautiful. There were also some wonderful parental moments, specifically with Václav's mother. I just thought some really great insight into being a mother, being an immigrant mother, just some really great moments with that as well. I will say on Goodreads there's some complaints about the immigrant, specifically the Russian immigrant experience, not being very accurate in this book and not being well researched and well depicted, and I genuinely don't have that much knowledge about that, so I can't speak to that. But I will say I thought that the use of language, whether some of the Russian language use or just the use of English through a Russian immigrant's voice, did not come out very authentic, and it seemed kind of stilted and stereotypical. The last third of the book was just terrible, like genuinely terrible. I thought there were so many serious issues that were just not addressed in this book, and also just like the love that I had for the characters for the first 2/3 of the book was just completely erased in the last third of the book, and I just felt like the author kind of let me down, and I didn't really like the end of the book either. I didn't feel like the resolution that was needed, so all in all I did give it 3 out of 5 stars, and I don't know that I'd recommend it. It was a fine read, and I read it because my name is in it, which is, you know, kind of stupid, but that's what I do. But like all in all, it was just an average, okay book. The next book that I read in the month of May was The Sympathizer by Viet Thanh Nguyen, and this has been on my TBR for a while. It is also a genre that I typically don't read. It is like a spy novel, and it won the Pulitzer Prize as well as the Andrew Carnegie Medal, and so this is a very highly regarded piece of text, and I've been wanting to read it for some time. I've had it in my hands since December, but I just haven't gotten around to read it, and because this is Asian American and Pacific Islander month, I wanted to take some time to just read some books from the larger Asian American Pacific Islander community. And this was a great opportunity to read this book. The narrator of this book is a communist, but he is an agent, a double agent. So he travels to America after the fall of Saigon, and is trying to navigate his life. Also, his identity is half Vietnamese, half French. and being a communist spy as well. The story is told in the style of a confession because he has already been captured by the time this book starts. But it is really just, you know, a spy novel, I guess you could say, and bordering on thriller in some ways. So as I mentioned, new genre for me. I was a little nervous going into it. For the first 300 pages, I'm going to be honest, I wasn't that invested. I don't really find it that easy to connect with the narrator. I thought it was a little tricky to fully engage with the narrator and get inside his head, even though it was a confessional, so you would think it would be easy to do that. But after the 300 page mark, I was sold. I was in it. I couldn't put it down. I was so drawn into what was happening with the narrator and the characters around him. I thought that it was so well written. After that point, I just could not put it down. I will also say, in general though, the book was good up until that point. I think it offers a really unique historical perspective. I didn't learn much about Vietnam beyond the whole anti-war thing. And then also we read things they carried in high school. But I have never read anything from the communist side, from a non-American perspective, and I found that to be really fascinating and also really powerful. And it filled in a lot of knowledge gaps that I genuinely have. I also think it challenges the concept of America for Americans to read, and I think that's a really interesting thing, and also grapples a lot with identity because he is half French, half Vietnamese. He does move to America, and he's majored in American studies, the narrator did. He majored in American studies, and so he has this whole what it means to be American kind of facade going on, which is really fascinating as well. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book overall. If you're not really sure in the beginning of the book, just push through. I promise it's worth it by the end. Third book that I read in the month of May was Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is a fantasy novel, the first in a trilogy, and it is using inspiration from pre-Columbian Americas, but very much fantastical and just combining a lot of different cultures and a lot of traditions. Each chapter starts with the countdown to this moment of the solstice, and basically as it switches from POV and between times, and so what's going on, it's all coming together for this great moment of the solstice when allegedly a god will come back. There's this prophecy that will happen. I don't want to give too much of it away, to be honest, but I will say I loved this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Fantasy is a beloved genre for me. Genuinely, I love fantasy books, and when I love them, they enter into my heart and they will never leave. That being said, I can be extremely picky with my fantasy books because they're so important to me, and there are certain tropes or certain aspects of fantasy that I just don't tolerate, and I hate when they're in books, or when fantasy books don't develop in the way that I want them to, this sounds so self-centered. It's hard to explain. It's first of all, I don't like sci-fi, and I also just struggle with fantasy books that are so romance-centered, or fantasy books that spend too much time on world building and not enough on characters, or too much time on characters and not enough on world building. So all of that stuff, we need a good balance, and I think that's very hard to master. I cannot do that. But when it hits right, it hits so right, and that's exactly what this book did. World building, the plot, the characters, it was just perfection. I loved the pre-Columbian America's inspiration. I thought it was so fascinating and also so well done. The combination of all these different cultures was just so strong, and I also really liked the different perspectives. I thought they were really well written and also unique, and they sounded like 4 completely different voices. They also wove together very nicely with the different subplots and the different ulterior motives that came together, and gave the reader enough to guess on, but didn't completely give it away. To be honest, I'd put off reading this book for a long time because I'd heard about this book, I heard about the hype, I've heard about Rebecca Roanhorse a lot because I know that she writes a lot of great books, but I've always put off reading some of her books because I'm worried that they just won't live up to the hype, and I was wrong. This book was fantastic, and specifically for this book, I would say that the gender identity and sexuality representations were phenomenal. They were so well integrated into the text and so just normalized. It wasn't the point of discussion, and also just concepts of sexuality in general were really great. And so definitely thumbs up for that. Definitely recommend it. And I hope to read the rest of this trilogy and maybe more Rebecca Roanhorse in the future. The book that I read was the 1619 Project, which is compiled by Nicole Hannah-Jones. It started as a New York Times project that then was this year made into an actual book and expanded a little bit. And so basically the concept of this book is to rewrite American history, start in 1619 when the first African Americans landed on the shores of what we now know as the United States today, and come all the way through history. Really just show the part of history that is so often not told in American classrooms, whether that's talking about racism that has the systemic setup that has literally been there since day one, or just the contributions that Black Americans continue to make each and every single day, but all throughout history as well. And just a celebration of the Black American culture and Black America in general really did accomplish that, I think. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. Each chapter is written by a different scholar or writer in general. It's nonfiction, but between each section there is some creative writing by really well-known poets and authors, and that was really incredible as well. There were some chapters that were just so eye-opening to me because I've been working on re-educating myself for the past few years, but there were still so many things that I just did not know, and this book really opened my eyes to that and allowed me to do more research and dive into that more. There's so many footnotes and great places to dive into your own research. The organization of the book was really well done. It was in different categories like healthcare, inheritance, slavery, economics, capitalism, things like that. Really well done, really well written. The authors really well selected, I guess, or whoever jumped onto the project. I also like the creative writing as well. I will say my biggest issue with this was that I think there were some passages that targeted marginalized groups and by further marginalizing them in a not productive way. Specifically, there was a passage about college admissions, or there's some passages about Indigenous people, and just more passages about Asian Americans in general, and the tone seemed really off for me because I don't know why we were trying to further marginalize other groups. So I was just a little concerned about that, but also as a white person, I know, I'm also not maybe the best person to judge that. So that was just my only complaint. I did see a few other people write about that in reviews, but all in all, definitely recommend. Eye-opening. Definitely some of those chapters should be read in high school classrooms, college classrooms, all around the country. Yes. Last book that I read in the month of May was The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, and this book is about Rin, who is a young girl, passes a very important exam to go to this prestigious military academy, and she gets in and she is trained, targeted for her color of her skin, her poverty, where she came from in the empire, and all those things like that. But quickly she rises to the top because she's a very gifted and talented student. This book is called The Poppy War because the empire is always worried about the next poppy war that could happen, and minor spoiler alert, a war does occur in this book. This is a very beloved book in the booktube community by people who love fantasy, and I did have high expectations for this book, and I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. Please do not hate me. I'm so sorry, but this is an example of fantasy not pulling through. The characters in this book were the problem, in my opinion. They were not well developed. Rin, who is the narrator, the lead, the main character, was just not well developed. It felt like I was reading this book in 2D the entire time, which was really, really frustrating for me. There were so many things that were just added in, and then they just seemed so at odds with who I thought Rin was, and so then I tried to shift them, who is Rin, and I just felt like I never really got there. She just wasn't a consistent character. I couldn't connect with her. I couldn't connect with any of the other characters around her, but not being able to connect to the main character is a problem. I thought the historical context and the influence it had upon this text was really interesting, and I thought that was really powerful in some ways, but it fell short because of the characters, time and time again, and I kept trying to give it new chances, and I really slogged my way through this book. It was a struggle to get through. And yes, this book is graphic. It really shows the brutalness of war and kind of how awful war is, but the characters just weren't there to make me feel anything, and I was just wow, war is bad, I guess. So yeah, I didn't like this book and I'm so sorry, and I'm disappointed mostly just that I didn't like it. But if you loved it, that's great. I'm really happy for you. I just don't think I'll be finishing this series. So those are all the books that I read in the month of May. I will be reading a bunch of books in the month of June now that I'm starting my summer break, but also life is super hectic with my job and work and all that stuff. So I'll keep you in tune for that. But for now, thank you so much for watching.